to start the stage so that people get the notification to join, but we won't be doing intros and everything until 10. Also, you can hear me typing, I'm sure. Honestly, my favorite part is when I hit start and the audience number just goes up really quick. There's always like 20 or 30 of you hanging out here ahead of time, and then it just shoots up. All right, let's get started. Welcome to the Winterspell Game Developer Mainstage. I'm Richelle Brady, Global Community Engagement Manager at Ravensburger. My job is representing fans and also creating moments for things like this within the community where the team can connect with all of you. From the game design and game dev side, joining us today is Lukas Litzsinger, who's game design manager at Ravensburger, and Alyson, who is lead game developer at Ravensburger. Also, I hope you guys are here. Everyone's cameras and mics are off. There we go.
Hello, I'm here.
And then for content creators today, from LoreChronicals, there's Willobeez and her sidekick, Mr. Burns.
What's going on, everyone?
Hello, thank you so much for having us.
So before we get started on everything we're going to talk about today, there's been this pressing question that has been following me ever since the Whispers in the Well game developer main stage about a traditional board wipe. A lot of people think I don't know what a traditional board wipe is, so we're gonna just get this out of the way right off the bat.
That looks like
Banish all characters. Okay?
Okay, and this
It
is from Wreck-It
exists.
Ralph, right?
This is not Wreck-It Ralph.
That's not the traditional board wipe?
That is not the traditional board wipe. It's
What about
not Wipeout. I was
Wipeout?
having fun with that. No, I was having
Freeze the
fun with that
Vine?
yesterday. It is not Freeze the Vine.
Okay, I'm confused and excited.
Just checking, just had to check.
We will get back to this later. But before we do, we kind of want to talk through some of what Winterspell did for the ink pie, right? The kind of the basic design principles when developing a set, and how this adjusts things and moves some things around. But I think the first thing that Lukas wanted to touch on was Moana.
Yeah, so this is kind of a template, what we would call a templating update, where we want to make sure that, the language of our game kind of matches the language that the players are using to talk about the cards. And so this was something that I was very excited to explore, and we actually did some consumer testing. We made some like new rule books with like the language Inca card as the turn action, and ran people through it to see like would they bounce on it, is it confusing, but it actually went really well, and so it gave us confidence to say like, okay, we're going to make a change to the language of the game, to the rules of the game, and change it from you can ink an additional card during your turn to just you can ink card. You can ink a card during your turn as the game action. And so Moana is the first card to actually use that template. She also then puts a twist on that template, which says you can ink a card from your discard. So we're giving you the new game action turn, and then we're also switching it up a little bit. So this is not like the standard game action of now you can ink from your discard. That is Moana's special ability, allowing you to ink from your discard, but it is an example of the new templating that we will use moving forward. And so I know there have been a lot of questions about like how does this work with like Sail the Azurite Sea. It does work with Sail the Azurite Sea. Sail the Azurite Sea will get updated wording to just say you can ink an additional card on your turn. Same with like Bell, Strange, and Special if you were playing Infinity. So it does work with those two cards.
Sweet. I love this for one. As someone that runs a local game store, I'm getting a lot of new players. And so they kind of get really confused with the different wording on the different cards. And I just have to, explain to them, well, Sail is worded just like Bell was, and it's how Bell worked. So this is A+.
Yeah, and one of the things, like, people are saying that Sail and Bell may still be confusing. We are planning to have updated game text release at some point. I'm not sure exactly when, but so that when you see the card digitally in the future, it'll have the right game text on it.
Yeah, and another thing that I really like about this template, in addition to, I think, over time being clearer, I know that introducing it for a card that also says you can ink from your discard, which is not the normal rule, might be a little bit on the confusing side. But I think over time, this will just make interactions much clearer as you see this rolled out and as you see cards kind of match this templating moving forward. And I mean, that's something that we always kind of think about, which is like, okay, what is the opportunity cost of making a change like this? Like there is the cost of some confusion in the short term, but like we're really thinking long term for this game, and we think this game is going to be around for a long, long time. And so it's like, would we have rather make the adjustment now, or wait? And the longer you wait, like the harder it becomes. And so we always kind of want to figure out if now is the right time, and generally if it's a change that we think is good for the long-term health of the game, like we're going to make that call and pull the trigger on it.
I need to clarify something out loud because the chat reacted to when I said digitally. I am referring to the website and the companion app. One of the other things, moving on, one of the other things that's changed was an emerald.
Yeah, so this is another kind of simplification of the game. And so Emerald previously would deal damage by putting damage counters on characters, and this kind of created a lot of rules questions, especially from newer players that were wondering how it interacted with different cards, both cards like resist, and then also cards that just talk about like taking damage or dealing damage or being dealt damage and so on and so forth. And so we took kind of a comprehensive approach looking at all of the language around like putting damage, dealing damage, taking damage, so on and so forth. And we think we have kind of a philosophy moving forward that will make things clearer here as well. And one of the changes is to remove kind of putting damage counters from the Emerald Pie moving forward. We are giving them the ability to deal damage rather than put damage, because this is just a simplification of the mechanic and doesn't have the same rules questions. Now, I know, Ali, if you want to talk about the dev team really likes the ability to get around resist, don't they? So
we do indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have cards such as a Mushu that does just deal damage to characters. But we do want to maintain the ability to get around resist on occasion, such as Malicious Mean Scary from the last set. Still having an ability to get around it. So we want to maintain different ways that Emerald can damage characters, I suppose. Both in the direct deal damage, but also we're probably going to maintain the damaging a damage character as well as a continuing part of as a part of excuse me, as part of their color pie.
Right. And so we do know that like people do like the ability for putting damage to get around things. And so we do have a plan for that moving forward as well. But that will not be like the default way that Emerald cards necessarily deal damage. And we do want Emerald cards to still care about damage characters. Just all of the cards caring about, dealing damage to damage characters was actually just too narrow. And it just made those cards really weak in comparison to the steel versions. And so steel will still be the best at dealing damage, but Emerald can also deal damage, is the update to the Ink Identity.
And speaking of which, there are 2 cards that haven't been seen yet, one of which deals with dealing damage.
Wow, so these are new cards. We haven't spoiled. Boomer. All right. Anybody want to read these out?
Willow, take it away. You got the voice for it.
Let's do it. We're going to start with Dinky. Has the brains with the ability Get Him. When you play this character, each opponent chooses one of their characters and deals 1 damage to him. Nail him, Boomer. Sock it to him. Sorry, I couldn't resist. That's awesome. We also have Boomer on the other side. Has the beak. Spotted him is the ability. When you play this character, you may exert chosen damaged character. Oh my gosh. These are so cool.
So
Yeah, I
would you,
love this Dinky.
Mr. Burns and Willow, would you say that one of you has the brains and one has the beak? Who would that be among the 2 of you?
Absolutely. I'm the talker for sure.
I love the imagery behind it too, right? Like Dinky is very small, so and Mr. Burns is way taller than me, so it kind of matches there. But I think it's really cool what you guys mentioned about kind of, I guess, thinking of it the way that I'm hearing you say it is sort of like expanding on like the ink identity of Emerald rather than what it traditionally used to be. When you were designing cards like this, where you're like, okay, we know that we like certain aspects of getting around resist, but we still want to lean into other things that get like that maybe we borrow from steel. Is that just something that you think helps give you all more flexibility to have these ink colors express themselves differently at different moments or in different sets, rather than having to be like restricted to a hard set of rules that you set in the beginning of time?
I would say we do want to maintain ink identity and make sure that inks have strengths and weaknesses, but we're always kind of reevaluating kind of the ink pie, as it were, and trying to see like, does it make sense? Like, does this make sense for this ink color? Does it match their philosophy? Does it play well? Do they have enough? Do they have too little? Like, and so kind of starting with 10 and then moving into 11, we kind of took a comprehensive look at like what every ink color is doing, how they're doing it, and we decided to make some changes and adjustments to it moving forward. But it isn't really the idea that like, okay, we'll just keep switching it up to keep it interesting, because then you kind of lose identity over time if everybody can kind of do everything. And so it's more like redrawing the lines and then holding ourselves to those lines moving forward.
And one way that lines are redrawn a little bit for emeralds is on this card.
And we've seen this, right? So, Yao Snow Warrior. Oh, I'm scared.
Yeah.
During opponent's turns, this character gains resist 2. Which, is this the first set where we kind of have reverse abilities? Like, we're used to seeing an ability that happens on your own turn when challenging, stuff like that. And these things are now happening on opponent's turns. Like, I think this design space it frees up a ton. Yeah. Is this something you're doing moving forward, or was you just dip the toe in the water for this set?
Yeah, this was kind of based again on kind of taking a comprehensive look at like what each ink color can do, and also we want to make sure that like we can make simple cards that are interesting. And we realized that Emerald didn't really have access to enough what we call keywords, like resist, evasive, ward, etc. Like it was kind of lagging behind some of the other inks. And so we're like, well, is there anything that we could do that would kind of match the Emerald identity? And it's like Emerald kind of punishes your opponent for challenging into them. And so, like a resist that can actually kind of punish your opponent without actually allowing you to challenge more effectively was a really interesting idea that we had. And we're like, let's test this out. Let's give it to Emerald that they can get resist off turn only. And it kind of plays into their identity in that regard of basically being harder to challenge, harder to take out, punishing the opponent for doing so.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And cards like this, you're saying it's like a kind of more of a basic card and has a nice nuance. Stuff like this is so good in limited. I feel like Whispers in the Well was the best limited format of all time. And as I'm reading all of these cards, I feel like this is now going to be the best limited format of all time. Like have cards lived up to your expectations of other formats aside from, constructed?
Allie, you want to take that one?
I would say so. Yeah, we've been putting a lot more focus on limited environments and other modes just to make sure that we have a good selection of ways to play the game for people that like to play them in different ways. I think we're quite happy with the way cards have been done and constructed, and focusing more on some of the more limited aspects should be great for a lot of our players.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. There's a lot of people that it's their favorite way to engage in the game, and I love seeing everyone engage however they can.
We'll talk a little bit more. We'll talk a little bit more about limited in a little bit, but next there was some changes in text templating, right, for this kind of ability.
This was an interesting card. Hey, persistent presence. I would say this card, had probably more conversation around it internally as to whether or not we wanted to update this template than probably most of the other templating adjustments we made for this set. But we felt like because the way that Amethyst works in this set, it was worth updating the template around these abilities. And again, this is not changing functionally anything about how the rules of the card work. It works the exact same way it's always worked, just not everybody realized that's how it worked before. But when these abilities go off, when the character is banished in a challenge, the card is not returned from play to hand. It is always returned from the discard to your hand. But a lot of times you're just shortcutting it. You're like, okay, I challenge. I'm already touching the card. It comes back to my hand, which, is fine as a shortcut. But from a rule standpoint, it actually matters where the card is coming from. And so we're like, well, rather than require people to, go to the comprehensive rules document, sorry, Kyle, if we can avoid people going to the comprehensive rules document as much as possible, like that's what I want to do, even though it's great. But if we can avoid people going there and just know how cards work on the table by reading the card, we think it's worth the extra words. But like that was a big conversation, is like, is it worth the extra words here? Can't people just kind of know how it works? But we decided to pull the trigger here because of the Kristoff, Anna cards in the set that interact with the discard and cards leaving the discard.
Yeah, absolutely. That was something that I thought of when you mentioned updating this template, is like, this is going to make it like so much clearer for just like players, because they get to say, like, there's cards that interact now with the discard pile, and the discard pile is potentially going to be, a sort of new resource for players when playing the game. And so having it just clearly laid out, like it is now leaving the discard pile, and then you have a card here that says when a card, leaves a player's discard pile or leaves your discard pile, as we see here on Kristoff, making that clearer. So I think that's a great update.
Yeah, and I think it kind of shows that, like, even though a lot of times we're looking for ways to shorten wording, like, ink a card is a lot shorter than, you may reveal a card from your hand and put it into your inkwell. We're not afraid to add wording either if we feel like it's worth it. And, I think this is a good indication of doing that.
Clarity is something that we always try to focus on a lot. We cut words when we can to make it actually add clarity to it. I think inking a card was something used by the community a lot, so it makes it a little bit clearer. And the change to hey hey just fixes some misconceptions that some people had as well.
Works with the Horn King too. So glad we got it the very next set. Also,
Yeah,
all this amethyst stuff's getting me hot in here. I gotta take this off. Sorry.
the time to
Committed to the
remove
bit
the
as
winter
much-
coats. I wanted to
There's
ask while
one.
we're
Nope, I don't
kind
have
of
one.
talking about discard, synergies, and like as the game is maturing, we are seeing more and more synergies pop up like this. Is that something that you guys were excited to lean into this set? Was, like I mentioned, like the idea of the discard pile as a resource, and in now that the cards are being revealed and we're seeing reactions, like is that kind of living up to how you wanted it to? And obviously we'll see more as the decks get built, but just want to know about that process, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, yeah, we kind of started it with whispers with, like Black Cauldron, Horn King. And that was something that we're like, I think there's a little bit more space here that we can follow up on in the next set. And we like kind of thinking of sets as kind of like what's happening in the set before them, what's happening in the set after them, and try to finding ways to make sure that we have enough connective tissue between sets. Because even if the sets are completely different from a thematic standpoint, like we want them to actually be somewhat connected from a gameplay and mechanical standpoint. And so that was something that's really important to us. And finding kind of like, oh, let's mess with the discard and like kind of put a little bit of a frozen spin on it for a couple of the cards in a package. Have a package around like Kristoff and Anna interacting with this was just really cool, because at any time we can kind of like take theme and kind of like put theme on cards that work well together that are part of the same franchise. We also think that's a win.
And
Awesome. Very
Kristoff
cool.
also is doing something for a different ink color. You guys want to talk about this one?
Yeah, I'd love to. Ruby, this is a new way we wanted to try in the set to give Ruby another way to, quote unquote, I guess, draw a card in some ways. It lets you play from the top of your deck. But if you can't play it immediately, it goes to the discard. So it allows you to have more opportunities to look deeper into your deck for things, but does come with the downside of not having it to your hand. Ruby is all about passion and moving forward and doing things quickly. So we didn't want to fill up theoretically your hand as much as give you opportunities to play things at an advanced pace.
Now, if it's an inkable card, can you ink it? Is that considered playing it?
That is not considered playing it.
Okay.
Nope.
I wanted to clear that up for the folks out there. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good example of how, it's not like Amethyst just gets all the draw cards. Amethyst is best at drawing multiple cards. That is part of their ink identity. So they can do conditionless draw multiple better than any other color. But it doesn't mean that all card advantage is restricted to Ruby or to Amethyst and can't go into Ruby, for example, or Amber, as you can see with these two cards. So like we do think all of the inks can get access to card advantage. They just do it in their own way.
Yeah, when I read a card like Wisdom of the Willow or Marching Off to Battle, I feel like these are more like signpost cards where you're kind of telling the audience, hey, this is what the ink identity wants to do already. And if you're doing that, you're going to get a reward for it. Is that something you're thinking about when you're designing the cards, or is it just like it has to have something that you jump through for?
Yeah, generally, like there is going to be, if the output is draw multiple cards, there does need to be some sort of input that is like tied to the ink identity. So Wisdom of the Willow, it's having a lot of characters, questing with those characters. Those are both very Amber actions to take. For Ruby here, it was, a character being banished, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be banished in a challenge. It could be banished by some other effect, or, like single target removal. And same thing with like Ohana means family, obviously kind of a throwback to an unlimited version of Rapunzel from set one, where you're removing damage from a character, which is a very Amber thing to do in order to draw cards for doing so. But Ohana means family is one of my favorite cards in the set. It's so fun, and when you get more than 3 cards off of it, yeah, you feel like you're cheating a little bit.
Yeah, Ohana Means Family is such an exciting addition, and you mentioned right Rapunzel from the first chapter. I think a lot of players their mind went to that. So it's great to hear you guys acknowledge it as well, and like that you are going back to some maybe original designs that you saw and just kind of implementing them in a way that you now want them to exist in the game. We've seen we talked about it a lot. I think in Whispers in the Well. You guys mentioned that the stat lines for vanillas were kind of changing, and now we can kind of see that here as well continuing, but not just on characters, it's also like with abilities. Is that something that you guys wanted to do this set, was go back to some of those abilities that maybe aren't in core construct anymore, like Rapunzel, and kind of see where you can update them and tweak them to fit the new design space of the game?
Absolutely. That is something that we're always looking at. We're also always looking at, does it make sense to reprint this card? What would it look like if we reprinted this card? And so, I'm not gonna say Rapunzel isn't a card that we've talked about as far as like, is it a reprint candidate? And sometimes cards we feel confident in bringing them back, and other times we're like, it's not their time yet. But we felt like this would be a nice way to kind of have this effect in the game, give it a different twist, give it a really good theme. Whenever you have a phrase like this, like Ohana Means Family, like we get one chance at making a card called Ohana Means Family. So we really want to make sure that it's a good card. Same thing with Circle of Life, for example, in Fabled. It's like you get one shot at making a Circle of Life. So we gotta make sure that we hit and it goes over well, because we don't get a do-over when we use a title of a card like that.
Yeah, that has
I'm
to be
actually
so scary as a designer. Like this
Yeah.
this has to be someone's favorite line out of any
Yeah.
movie ever. And it's gonna be tied to this forever. So I'd say you hit it out of the park though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, like, do you all feel that actually makes design easier sometimes, or like more fun maybe, when you're almost like designing to constraints, like something like Ohana Means Family, like you mentioned, you like know that it's sort of this important thing to the community, or even like in things like Freeze the Vine, like, okay, Lorcana is frozen over, like does that like change the design space in any way, in terms of like, I don't know, does it help when you get to design to a theme like that?
Sometimes it can help, and sometimes it can make it harder, because there's
Mm.
usually a lot of other things that we're taking into consideration with like the set and the ink and so on and so forth. So Ohana Means Family was actually like pretty difficult, because we knew we wanted to be an exciting card. We knew we wanted to be a strong card. We knew that we really wanted to be kind of like a card that you were excited to open. And so we're like, it probably needs to be like super legendary, where you're like, oh, Ohana means, like, I finally found Ohana Means Family. I found my family, in the same way that you're like waiting for that resolution, like during the movie. And so, like, putting all of those constraints together for this card was actually pretty difficult, with the pressure that it's like, this is Ohana Means Family. And so sometimes, starting with a top down design, I'd say for a character, being like, okay, we know what this character is, and we're going to get a lot of shots at making this character. So like, there's not as much pressure as there is on an action card.
Mm.
Like, those restrictions are helpful, but when it's a card like this, it actually makes it more difficult. Same thing with kind of like, do you want to build a snowman? Like, that was a hard card for us to figure out as well.
I could only imagine. The songs have even harder
You
because
mentioned.
people are
Oh,
singing them.
sorry.
No, it's all
Yeah.
good.
You mentioned before, Lucas, the ink pie and different, adding to emeralds to try and balance things. Did you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Oh yeah. So as you can see, this is kind of like our breakdown of like the different keywords that the different inks have access to. And so you can see that like Amber has access to Bodyguard and Singer and Support. And then, starting in set 9 Fabled, like Ruby picked up Singer. Fewer. So it's not going to get as many singers as Amber, but like it now has access to singers, which we are really excited about. And that kind of gives them like a third positive keyword, because reckless is not necessarily a positive keyword. You do get, usually more stats for it, but you don't necessarily get anything else. You get kind of a downside with it. But you can kind of see that, we're pretty happy with Amethyst having Rush, Challenger, and Evasive. And then Sapphire has ward support picked up alert as well in set 10 and giving resist to other characters. But like picking up alert I think was really big because that was an effect that we just started writing out a lot, and we're like, maybe if we're going to use this in like just about every set, maybe we should think about adding it to our list of keywords. And so Sapphire picked up alert, and then also Steel picked up alert because that was something that we previously just wrote out on a bunch of their commons and uncommons. But then you got to Emerald and you're like, what do they have? They have ward and evasive. Like, feels like they don't have very much. Like, we don't have a lot of like simple cards to make with Emerald. So that's where we kind of kicked off the discussion of like the Yao trigger of resist on the opponent's turn. And we're actually pretty excited about how that's going to play out. And we think that can become part of their identity over time.
Love it.
I think,
Because
yeah.
previously
go
their
ahead, I'm sorry.
identity to me was uninkable. So
No, but I think it's actually like even seeing a chart like this is so helpful. I think across the board, but for me, with this being my first trading card game, it's like something that looking at this, it can kind of help me identify as I work on things like deck building and like how they can work together. And I know you guys have said what the ink identities are, but it's sometimes just in like cool phrases, like you said, like they're bold and ambitious. So I think kind of seeing it broken down in this way is going to be really helpful for players, and it's really cool to see now we can just sort of pick, okay, maybe I do want to combine reckless with evasive and see how I can build from there. So I think this is awesome for the community to have.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just like the tip of kind of what we consider to be the ink pie and ink identity. There's a lot more that goes into it. And so this is just kind of what we consider like the top line keywords, the stuff that goes on what we call like the French cards in each set. And French just means like it's a card that has a keyword and nothing else. And we want to make sure that we have a certain number of those per set, which I think we'll talk about here a little bit later. Because that just keeps the complexity of the set down and makes it more welcoming to newer players.
Yeah, and the chat is kind of, like you just mentioned, that this is only the tip of it. The chat is mentioning, like, oh, well, Amethyst has unconditional draws and things like that. This is just keywords. We just wanted to show a little bit. I think listing everything out here would take multiple slides and be a bit unwieldy. So this is just to give an example. But with that said, that is part of why we are going to talk about the board wipe now, because where that moved on the ink pie is very relevant.
Yep.
I
It is
can't wait.
relevant. Oh, here it is. Boom. All right.
Amber.
Storm.
Okay. I think this was my last pick.
Banish all.
Oh my gosh. Raging Storm action. Banish all characters. Uninkable 8 cost. This is crazy. It's back.
Yeah, and it's something we don't typically see paired with Sapphire, and now we might. So that is also extremely exciting.
Oh, one thing before, if you guys want to talk about this more, I need to just change the slide real quick. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go for it.
You're the boss.
Do you need to do?
Of course.
This is my favorite enchanted from this set. I need a playset of it. I am so excited.
Oh my
I think
goodness.
as of 5 seconds ago, this was everyone's favorite enchanted of this set.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, this is incredible. This is so this is so exciting. It's back. It's back.
Yeah.
And it belongs in amber.
I know. I would not have expected it. So what was the thought process of putting in amber?
Yeah, so when we did kind of the comprehensive review of the ink pie and took a look at everything, we knew that we wanted to move Be Prepared out of Ruby. We felt like Ruby should excel at kind of single and multi-target removal, but not necessarily board wiping and banishing all characters from play. And so we knew it needed a new home, and we took a look at all of the potential removal options in every single ink type, and we just kept coming back to Amber as the home for this for a couple of reasons. One is that like Amber already kind of punished strong characters, banishing characters with like 5 strength or more. But they didn't have a lot of other options for removal. And we felt like in the same way that they can punish strong characters, maybe they can punish a strong board as well. Oh man, it looks like we have somebody else who's made it into the chat here.
What's my boss doing here? He's getting
Oh,
stifled.
Discord muted
He's
you.
getting
You might have to
stifled
do it
by
a little
this.
bit lower.
Try that again.
It's too loud.
Too loud. We couldn't hear you. A little lower.
Raging storm.
There we go.
Bravo.
Discord can't handle the villain voice.
Yeah.
I just need to make one very short announcement.
Oh.
Wow.
Should I take mine?
And that's
also?
it.
Anyway.
Unbelievable.
Thank you,
Welcome,
Baker, for that.
Thank you.
Oh my
I'll leave you
gosh.
to it. I think I've made my opinion. I think I've made my thoughts very clear. I wish you the best with the rest. See you soon.
Oh,
that is kind
goodness.
of catchy though, like Raging Storm.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of a good feel to it.
Oh, we will be hearing that for years to come. But yeah,
that was
Baker's
incredible.
Team Amber now.
I want to ask actually, because I know you spoke to a little bit of how you guys kept coming back to Amber, and now obviously we see it in Amber. It's so interesting to see Amber get a board wipe, because it's really going to change like the deck building, and there's going to be 2 different archetypes, right? Because you might not necessarily want to build a deck with things like Bodyguard, where your characters are meant to stay on the board, which we saw in our very simplified version chat of all of the ink colors. Like Bodyguard was on there for Amber, but now you can go a different way where it's actually not trying to get those characters to stick. So this is such a interesting choice from you guys, and I'm so excited for this set to release. I want to play with this card.
Yeah, we also felt like from kind of a personality standpoint, like Amber kind of has a bit of a connection to natural shapes and the natural world and its shape language. Also, it cares about symmetrical kind of effects as well. Like Emerald is more of like I want to catch up and make things fair. Amber is more like I want to make things fair. I want things to be equal. And so just kind of moving forward, we felt like this was a really good fit for where we envision Amber and where we want Amber to be positioned in the ink pie. But yeah, you will notice, there are some changes to this card from the previous version of a board wipe. So Allie, do you want to talk a little bit about it not being a song and that 8 cost up in the corner?
I'd love to. I know there's been a lot of talk in the dev room even about costing of all the different cards and making sure that we find the correct number and the correct ability for the cards themselves. Not making it a song, we decided was to partially just because Amber has a lot of good singers. Didn't want to make it too easy to be able to sing a song like this. I think we kind of came to this decision that it was just like not the direction we wanted to go with it. The 8 cost, we tried it at 7 cost a lot. We tried it at different costs in general, and we settled on 8 cost as being the correct number based off of the decks we were expecting, decks in the past, even future things. It's where it lined up perfectly for us. Besides, a little snowman on this card. I like it.
Yeah, the foiling is going to be great.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Also important that cards like that are uninkable. Like we do want to make sure that you're making tough choices about, what uninkable cards to play in your deck. And so if a card like that was inkable, you could just throw in 4 a lot easier and not really have to worry about it and just have it as a safety valve in case things don't go your way. But being uninkable, it might not play into your strategy very well if you end up with a couple of these in your hand and you don't have any way to get up to 8 ink. So it is something that you're going to have to definitely kind of build around and put into your deck with a game plan in mind for.
Ink on the card is something that we use as a knob a lot within design to find the correct place for the card. Some people agree with that, some people don't within the community, but I stand firm, this one cannot have ink.
It's a great call, guys.
So we talked about improvements for draft when designing the set. Here's a little bit of a look at that.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a behind the scenes of how we kind of track things and approach things. This is actually part of a spreadsheet that we put together, actually starting kind of in set 10. So I'm glad to hear that y'all liked the limited in set 10 because that was kind of the first set we started kind of testing this and being like, hey, what if we start tracking things? And we kind of started refining it over the next couple of sets. But with set 11, we're like, okay, we want to make sure draft is a good, engaging, fun experience. And we looked at the previous draft sets that we felt like were good, and I really like even drafting the very first chapter. I think that's one of the best limited environments we've done. And so we're like, okay, can we reverse engineer why this is fun? And one of the things we came back to is you really do need a mix of different types of effects. And so in the same way that the first chapter was introducing the game and the players to all of the ink identities in the first place, it's we need to make sure that we have a breadth of abilities that kind of represent the ink identities in the set, and we also need to make sure that there's enough card advantage and character removal in those inks to create interesting games and to give players options and to add interaction to the game. And so this is actually a spreadsheet that goes down to 90, 100 lines long for all of the different effects in the game. But you can see that it's okay, we really always want to make sure that in each ink type we have at common, uncommon, and rare. I like the little note in the corner that we wrote that said, these are targets for common, uncommon, and rare. Super and legendary cards can just do whatever they need to, no rules throughout the rules. They still follow ink identity, but we don't have to worry about what are they doing because they're not going to show up nearly as frequently as the commons, uncommons, and rare when you're playing limited. And so this is okay, based on just common, uncommon, and rare, what effects are we seeing in the set, and how are we going to actually make sure that we have that experience that we want players to have? And so you can see that we always want vanilla cards, we always want French vanilla cards, we always want 1-drop characters. That was something that we noticed going back to sets that were maybe better or worse for limited, is some of them just didn't have a very consistent cost curve. Sometimes there were almost no 1-drop characters that you were opening with any frequency, which meant if you wanted to be a little bit more aggressive, you were just way behind the ball, and that wasn't really a possible strategy to employ. Location, shift, song, card advantage, character removal I talked about, and then it goes on from there. But this has really helped us just kind of check the box and just kind of be a sanity check for making sure that we're including the things that we think make a good limited environment. And then the second thing, which I think is just as impactful, is we're also updating the rules, starting with Winterspell. And while a sealed will still use a 40-card deck, if you are playing draft, you are now going to use a 35-card deck. And this is really important because it actually just gives you a little bit more choice. Because if you were basically drafting before and cutting from 48 cards to 40, you were really only picking 4 cards to remove from your deck, because 4 of the cards you didn't even pick. You were just passed as the last pick. So maybe they worked for you, but they probably didn't work for you that well. They're last pick. So you're really just going from 44 cards to 40 cards, which means you can only make 4 picks that don't end up in your deck. That is a lot of pressure to pick well. And, it's very difficult to pivot or change strategies over the course of the draft if something isn't working for you. And it also just means that cards that are a little bit more situational are cards you almost never want, because you don't know if that situation will arise and you might be forced to include it in your deck anyway. And so like, what we might term like sideboard cards or cards that you could switch in and out over the course of a draft, like just don't make sense. And so we tested a couple of different numbers, but 35 really felt like the sweet spot of like you actually have a lot more control over what goes into your deck. It actually becomes kind of difficult. Like before, it'd be like, well, here's these 6 cards that I know I'm not playing. Now I'm just deciding between like these couple extra cards. But like cutting down to 35 is actually pretty difficult, and it actually makes it a little bit more interesting. And then also, one more thing, I could talk about this forever, so I'll just cut myself off here after one more point. But one more thing it does is it allows synergies to be a little bit easier to build around, because now you have a 35 card deck. And so if you get 1 or 2 copies of a card, you're more likely to see it. And that's more exciting to draft synergies and play synergies and limited as well. So
yeah,
I'll just pause there.
So I wanna reiterate, or I just want to make sure 35 is obviously the minimum.
Correct. You can go
Just
higher if you want.
Yeah, I just want to let people know out there, boost is a mechanic, and I've almost decked myself.
Yep.
So there is credence out there to those that you can jam all 48 if you want, right? So anyway, yeah, that was the first thing that jumped out on the page when you were talking about the numbers, and I love the numbers. I actually have a chart like this for what every keyword is worth as far as stat points, which again, this isn't place for that, but I absolutely love that you have these parameters. I mean, there are people, I know people, even when they draft, they will only play, the colors they know. So it's so important for all of them to have some sort of balance within these constraints. So I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, limited is like in some ways like I don't know. I mean, clearly you guys are thinking about it, which is so incredible. But like in some ways, it's kind of the first way that players get their hands on the set, because we all show up to like the pre-release weekend and we do like draft and sealed, and so I think to see you guys designing to that experience a little bit, or just at least thinking about it with things like this chart, we're just so fortunate as players, because this is the first way that we touch these cards. And for me, it's like my favorite thing to do to go to my LGS, because it helps me learn what these cards do, rather than just, of course I read them, I watch all the reveals, but having them in my hand and being able to play with them. So I think it's so awesome like that you guys did this for us, and I can't wait to play.
Yeah, I will say if you've tried draft previously and you're like, it's okay, I would say definitely give it another go with 35 card decks. Some of the newer sets that we've made with it, kind of a little bit more in mind, because I do think it makes it feel like a completely different experience. Even just having different archetypes that you're looking for within the draft is pretty exciting, and you can build more towards synergies now, and you're not just like picking the best card for your curve and just being like, yep, I just picked that one because it's the best card for my curve. It actually opens up a lot more strategy.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna need a limited main stage next set.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
So for the rest of the time, we have about 15 minutes. We can go over if we need to a little bit, I think, unless people are like, no, I have to go at 11. But we have card reveals for the rest of this. I do want to note before we start, though, there are a lot of steel cards, which I think people are expecting, because there are a lot of steel cards missing.
Sounds great. And Willow can read all of them.
All right, I'm reading all of them, starting up with Copper Hound Pup with the ability Found Ya. When you play this character, chosen player reveals their hand. So awesome. And then we also have Todd All Alone, and there's no ability text there.
Yeah, I love this. Copper is great, because how many times do you play an Ursula Deceiver just because you want to see their hand and know what they're doing the next however many turns? Now you have a great stat line to go along with it, and it's a puppy. Like, that's crazy. That's awesome that it's a puppy.
Yeah,
this
card is great because it's always playable.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know we don't have a lot of time. I'm sorry, Richelle.
No, you're good.
How important have the characteristics been, the subtypes of the cards? Because I feel like going back a few sets ago, people didn't even really pay attention to them, and now I feel like it's the first thing my eyes are drawn to. Like, there are so many more synergies and linear things going on in deck building now, which is fantastic. So how important is that? Do you like say, hey, we want puppies back, or do we say, hey, we want copper, and it's obviously a puppy?
Yeah, sometimes it's like we want, specific classifications because we want to design toward them and make them a little bit more of a package. Other times it's just like, okay, this character is obviously, a puppy, so it has to get the puppy classification, which is more of the case on Copper. We don't really have any
Yeah.
puppy synergy in this set, but in the future, you never know. Could
We're gonna
become
break it.
relevant again.
Yeah.
It's
Someone clip that for when puppy wins a
I
DLC.
just am.
Oh yeah.
I'm just a little bit upset that we didn't get the fox type on Todd. I feel like that might be an opportunity. Foxes are, just personally my favorite animal. So
Okay.
There are a few.
Yeah.
Fox
There's
meta
a
coming
bunch
soon.
there's a bunch in Disney too.
We could have retroactively added it to Nick Wilde, Madam Mim. Yeah.
mhm. Yep. See, should have done it. Oh well, maybe next time.
Another one. 2-cost uninkable. Grandmother Willow, Ancient Advisor, Storyborn Mentor. Smooth the Way is the ability. Once during your turn, you pay 1 less for the next character you play this turn. Oh, that's really cool.
And you don't have to quest with it or anything.
That's so cool.
Oh my. Oh, you thought Lantern was good.
Oh, we're taking lanterns out.
Okay.
We're putting Grandmother Willow in.
Yeah, with all these benches running around these days in this economy, lanterns. Wow, we got something that can quest. Yeah.
Yeah, the flavor text is accurate. I haven't had this much excitement in 200 years. That's accurate. This is awesome. We're so excited.
Yeah, this
I
is.
just want to say, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, this is an exciting card, and we spent a lot of time figuring out the template for this because we felt it was really important to, basically have it reduce. But for a while, we actually tested, like the first character you play each turn costs 1 less. But it felt really sad to like play Grandmother Willow, realize that like she was the first character I played, and now I can't get the reduction on that turn. We're like, what if we allowed it to happen on the turn that it came into play? Like, is that too strong? Like, can we test that? Like, we were pretty skeptical of it, but the dev team did a really good job of putting it through its paces and figuring out what the stats could be. So I'm really happy that we got one that feels good to play, and it feels like you're getting away with something by dropping it and then reducing the cost of the next character you play immediately.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that like the fact that you can turn 1 Angel, turn 2 Akurat Muti, play Grandmother Willow for free, and then you can play a 3-drop.
Lady into a 2-drop. Yeah, we can just live the dream. Can I ask a question about rarity real quick? So like Lantern is a rare, obviously. This card seems insane to me. Is rarity more for how often you're going to open it in limited versus like how playable it is in constructed?
Rarity kind of has a lot of different aspects to it. One of them is limited for sure, and we do look at rarity as far as like, is this going to show up in limited? At what point is it going to show up in limited? How many of these do you want in limited? So I do feel like this card easily probably could have been rare or uncommon. I think rare would have been fine as well, but yeah, rarity also sometimes represents complexity of the card. Is like, how complex is it to use, how many words are on the card. The further up you go, the more comfortable we are with putting more words on the card and putting a little bit more complexity into how it works. But yeah, this was a card that I think could have easily been rare, but we decided we liked it in uncommon, and we felt like it was also a very strong card for limited as well. So I'm really excited to be able to put cards that are powerful all along the rarity curve. It's not just like only the legendaries are good. There's power in pretty much every rarity that you can find and play and put into your constructed decks, which I think is important to making the game accessible.
Great.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
7-cost inkable Li Shang, Valiant Leader with a 9/5 stat line there. Floodborn Hero, Captain, Shift 4, and Quests for 2.
This Li Shang's got a full-time job. It's 9 to 5.
It's 9 to 5. That's great.
Only a shift 4. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
The
We
I
thought
mean,
4 cost 5/5s were good. I'm seeing a 4 cost 9/5.
or
Let's go.
yeah, uninkable 4 cost 5/5s, and then even just hard casting this is still great, especially in limited. Yeah, I mean, nice little card.
Yeah, I will say there's this is maybe too inside baseball, but there's a funny discussion within our team about whether or not Li Shang is like actually a vanilla shift character or a French shift character because he has a keyword. It's just the shift keyword. So does that make him a vanilla with the shift keyword, or is he just a French shift? We don't know, but we like this card. We think it's a fun card.
I'm so glad you said that because I was going to say a nice little French vanilla, and I didn't want to look stupid. So thank you. I look stupid on a daily basis. I could avoid that one.
So I accidentally clicked the button to switch slides, but I will give this one a little bit more before I click again. One of the things that you guys decided was to carry over some of the themes from Whispers in the Well into Winterspell.
Yep,
And then I'll
gargoyles.
click.
Okay. Yep, gargoyles.
3 cost Inkable. Angela, Night Warrior, 2/3 stat line, Dreamborn, Ally, Gargoyle with the ability Shadow Power. When you play this character, you may give chosen character Challenger +2 and Resist +2 until the start of your next turn. And Eternal Night. Your gargoyle characters lose the Stone by Day ability. Oh my goodness. I was looking for it. I was like, and here comes Stone by Day. No, this is so cool.
I needed this so badly in Richmond. My characters were locked down for like 7 turns in a row. I am shocked it doesn't say when you play this character, give a gargoyle Challenger +2 and Resist. Like this card is insane. Like this is such a good card, and it has the gargoyle tag for all your other synergies. So yeah,
this card was
awesome.
super fun. This is one of my favorite cards in the set. Just because we were looking at the gargoyle packages and it's like, well, what do gargoyles need? Like, what is something that we could give them that would be exciting, that kind of changes the way those decks play? And what we came up with was like, well, what if we had a way to like turn off the Stone by Day ability kind of more permanently than just like, cards in hand? And so we're like, okay, that sounds interesting. Let's put that on a character and see what happens. And then, Angela also not appearing in the last set, we knew that she should be a pretty exciting character. And so, it kind of all came together. We came up with a cool narrative that it's like, it's always nighttime. The gargoyles are never going to be stone because it is never going to be day. And so then we made a Dreamborn version of Angela that just kind of like always is bringing the night and makes it eternal night and chases the day away, which is just an amazing kind of narrative for this card as well.
And the art on the card is just so beautiful too that we wanted to make sure that it's
the
pretty cool.
foiling again is going to be fantastic. It's going to be out of this world. Actually, we can see.
Can confirm. Can confirm.
So the next card is Amethyst, and I'm gonna just kind of take a jab here and ask, did we really need another rush evasive character at Amethyst?
So we've got a 4-cost uninkable Sven, Leaping Reindeer, 2/3 stat line, Dreamborn Ally, Rush, Challenger +3, and Evasive. I'm happy about it. I love Amethyst, so thank you for the other for an extra one.
I'm here for you. I appreciate you too.
Yeah, I invited the right people for this card.
It's just a little leaping reindeer. It can't be that big of a deal. Look, he's only 2 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lore. That's no problem.
I'm sorry, did you say 2 strength or did you mean 5? Because I'm challenging right when he comes into play.
Yeah, from a gameplay perspective, I love that you're used to things coming down on turn 5, right? And this changes up the game in a way that people don't even realize once they just look through the spoilers. They'll have to start playing because people are like, "Oh yeah, I can quest everything turn 4." Elsa's not coming until turn 5. Maui's not coming until turn 5, and then all of a sudden you have Sven in your deck, and I think that's a great way of using design, is like moving along player expectations.
Yeah, Ali, how did you feel about the development of this card? Because I know this was a card that, we felt really, really defined kind of our testing to some extent.
It did a lot. This had a lot of eyes on it throughout our testing process. We wanted to make sure that it was statted correctly, everything kind of fell in line, and it was a very played card within our internal meta, I suppose you could say. I think we actually kind of landed on the perfect design for it, so I'm really happy, and I'm hoping to see exactly what the community thinks of it once it gets play.
Yeah, 3
Yeah, and I'm
keys.
just joking around. This
I
is
remember
a great card.
chosen with a lot of thought behind it as to like what it can challenge into, what will knock it off the board, where it's going to land on the curve, what it's going to answer. And so yeah, we feel like we hopefully found the sweet spot for making it a strong, solid answer to some cards that you're going to be seeing, but not overly oppressive at the same time.
And I think the next one, oh, and I just want to say, in case we were talking at the same time, I think I am just joking around. I think this is a great card. The design is awesome for it. But I think the next one we may have accidentally put up on the website or the app. But if you haven't seen it, there's a new Olaf.
Olaf, 9-cost inkable. Olaf, Snowman of Action, 4/4 stat line, Storyborn ally with the ability About Time. For each action card in your discard, you pay 1 less to play this character. And Chaotic Collision. When you play this character, each opponent loses 2 lore.
Yeah, so these cards are fun. We did kind of a cycle of these cost reduction cards in set 5. And we're like, maybe we should do another cycle and just see how it plays out, see what we can come up with. I will say I don't think there's as much design space for these as we initially thought. Like it was actually challenging to find the right cost reduction for each of them that was interesting and felt somewhat achievable. Because the dream of these is always to get down to 0. Like you would just want to play the card for free. So we wanted to find something that theoretically felt somewhat achievable under the right conditions. But I actually think this one, is probably one of the more achievable ones. Getting actions in your discard, you do need a lot of actions in your deck, but it creates kind of a fun challenge.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you have inkable actions that draw a card, you're still cycling through finding this Olaf. I forgot. I did want to ask about multiplayer, actually. I have a multiplayer locals that I love going to, and some cards say each opponent, some cards say choose an opponent. Is multiplayer something that, like, you really think about when designing your cards, or are you just like, you know what, actually, yeah, this is, like, we don't have to think about it that much because we just know this is too good in multiplayer.
We do think about it.
Yeah, go for it, Ali.
We do think about it. Some cards are going to say each opponent. Some cards will say chosen opponent. We deliberately try to choose the correct wording on those different cards. Sometimes we want to affect everyone else. Sometimes we want it to be a little bit more diplomatic. And I'll choose you as long as you don't challenge my character on your turn, type thing.
Yeah, makes sense. And we've had multiplayer side events at DLCs now, so I feel like a lot more people are getting involved with it, which is fantastic. And playing with all my friends at once is probably my favorite way to play. So
yeah, and it is something that like we are trying to be more like intentional with, because if you remember that copper reveal, copper is actually a little bit different than the previous Diablo. And so like Diablo that comes out on turn 1 and like looks at each opponent's hand is actually, I think, really frustrating to play in multiplayer. It's just like, I don't even want to play the card. It's like it's too much information. It's too annoying. Like turn 1, look at everybody's hand. It's like it's good. Of course you should do it, But like that's just not a fun moment. It slows the game down. It's not something that we really want to happen all the time. And so
Yeah.
when we made Copper, we're like, we do like that effect, but let's change that. Let's change that one from each opponent to actually be chosen opponent. So now you just get to look at one person's hand. It resolves a lot quicker. It's just not going to be the headache that Diablo was in multiplayer.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't hear a lot of multiplayer talk, so I appreciate that so much.
4 cost uninkable Scrooge McDuck, Ebenezer Scrooge 4/3 stat line, Storyborn vanilla with the ability Payment Due. Whenever this character quests, each opponent loses 1 lore. Draw a card for each 1 lore lost this way. And the ability Foreclosure. At the end of your turn, if an opponent has 0 lore, you gain 1 lore. Oh my goodness. Speaking of multiplayer.
Yeah, we're just talking about multiplayer.
I heard
This
you
is
like
also-
multiplayer cards. Well, here we go.
I also love that like this forces your opponent to start questing. One thing like that's what I love about locations as well is like sometimes you get in these board states that are really clogged up and you kind of just have to throw something out there to force your opponent's hand. Like, okay, do I want them to keep getting this lore every turn, or am I gonna actually turn something sideways every once in a while? So yeah, love it. Versatile.
Yeah, and this is a good example of a card that, yeah, we did kind of look at through a multiplayer lens and figure out like, okay, is this too much? You know, is drawing 3 cards too much for this Scrooge in multiplayer? Is he too greedy getting all of those cards? But no, we actually felt like, you know, uninkable 4 cost has to wait, so you have to kind of quest with him. So there's kind of a turn to answer him in between. And then also, as you mentioned, like he kind of incentivizes people to start questing and move the game forward. We felt like was just a really good fit for multiplayer. And you know, if you want to try to build a drain deck where you're draining people of lore and multiplayer, like go for it. It's hard. It's hard to win that way.
But you could play for so long.
Okay, so for the rest of these cards, you know, we started out with these card previews last week. And a lot of people were asking us, where are the Darkwing Duck cards? Because we didn't focus on that during the special lorecast. We're going to have a bunch of Darkwing Duck cards right now. And the one that people keep asking about...
3 cost inkable Gosselin Mallard, Curious Child, 1/3 stat line, Storyborn ally with the ability Keen Gear. When you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an item card and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. I love it.
Upgraded Scuttle.
Yeah, Scuttle rotated out. We're like, you know, we do like that effect. That's a good effect for item decks. Goslin, you know, is really interested in tech and the gadgets that Darkwing has. And so we felt like, you know, let's make a Scuttle that's maybe a little bit better at questing, but still gives you the item that you're looking for. And so we have Goslin.
And people can stop asking if Darkwing Duck is in Disney Lorcana yet. It is here.
It's here.
Speaking of that, this was the image that we first used to announce Darkwing Duck in Disney Lorcana.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool. Okay, 2 cost inkable. The terror that flaps in the night. Sorry, that's an epic title. Let me read it again. The terror that flaps in the night. Action. Deal 2 damage to chosen opposing character. If you have a character named Darkwing Duck in play, deal 3 damage instead.
The new baboon.
When we were designing Darkwing Duck cards, we kind of had 2 North Stars that we were kind of putting the cards through their paces with. The first one was just caring about Darkwing Duck. Like the show revolves around him. He kind of has a bit of an ego. And so it's like, you know, all of your cards should get better if you have Darkwing Duck in play. And so you'll see a decent number of cards that just care about you having a Darkwing Duck in play. The launch pad specifically, I don't know if we've shown it yet or if we're going to show it. I think we might have. That, you know, draws and then discards, but doesn't discard if you have a Darkwing is another good example of that. But we are like, okay, Darkwing wants to have Darkwing Duck in play. So we're going to have cards that play off of that. And then the other kind of theme of Darkwing Duck is all of his gadgets and items that he uses. And so those were kind of the two things that we built the cards around.
3-cost inkable Launchpad, Hideout Defender, 2/5. Stand guard. Your locations gain resist +1. And 1-cost inkable Darkwing Duck, Crime Fighter, with Storyborn Super Hero and Detective, but no ability.
Yeah, here's a different Launchpad, not the one I was talking about, but this guy's fun too. And yeah, this also kind of shows that we actually want steel to be a color that cares about locations as well. And so kind of looking at the ink identity, we kind of felt like emerald and steel were sometimes doing things a little bit ruby, emerald, steel. It was kind of getting a little bit messy, but we do want steel to care about locations.
And we saw that in the draft guide. Ruby and steel had extra in the location. And we got a shift target for Darkwing Duck.
Yeah.
One more thing for Darkwing Duck.
Is 3-cost inkable the Thunderquack. This is an item with the ability Vigilante Justice. All opposing characters gain the villain classification and the ability Lay of the Land. Exert this item if a character was banished in a challenge this turn. Gain 1 lore.
I can't believe this is inkable.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So a reminder of our Darkwing Duck here, 7-cost inkable Darkwing Duck, cool under pressure. Shift 5 with the ability take that during your turn. Whenever an item is banished, you may pay 1 to deal 2 damage to chosen character. And Evildoers beware. This character can challenge ready villain characters. So that's really cool to see the Vigilante Justice. I mean, yeah, like powering up this Darkwing Duck. This is so awesome.
Yeah, this obviously storyborn Darkwing Duck with shift. Is there? Do you have any fun stories behind that?
Yeah, so that was a big conversation for us as well, and it felt like superheroes were a really good way to express the shift mechanic in addition to just caring about like Floodborn, because they have an identity and then they like shift, they change their identity. And so we actually have decided to kind of expand the cards that shift can go on to also include superheroes, so kind of cards with the super or hero type, as a way to kind of tell that story, because we feel like it's a good way to like have and I will say in hindsight, I hate to like point out things that we could have done better, but in hindsight, like I wish that base Darkwing Duck was actually the one that you see on the Sapphire card where he's just like Drake Ballard and he's not doing anything, because that's the one that people use as the shift base. We're like, yeah, it's Sapphire Steel, but let's be honest, people are going to use the 1-cost one as the shift base. The story would have been a little bit cleaner if we had put it on the one that people are always going to see, shifting from Drake Mallard into Darkwing Duck. But that's the idea, is like you have the cheaper Darkwing Duck and then you shift this one over it and it's like, oh, it's actually Darkwing Duck the whole time. But we think that's a really good way to kind of show superheroes and work with the mechanic that we all love in the game, which is shift, and is a really unique mechanic for us.
Yeah, see, this is one of those times where I feel stupid, because we talked about this in our latest video and I was like, I can't think of anything. And it's so obvious. It's right there. It makes perfect sense.
And obviously, for this being the first Darkwing Duck shift card, and the first shift card that is not a Floodborn, we need something special for it.
Oh my
Sounds a real special.
goodness.
I think chat was just asking for this, actually.
This is incredible. This is so incredible.
Yeah, this is gonna, I mean, the board wipe obviously is gonna be most people's chase card, but I know some people out there that this is gonna get graded immediately, and it's gonna be, they're gonna be wearing it around their neck.
Right, yeah, right around the neck.
Every event that they go through. So this is fantastic.
Yeah, this is definitely an amazing enchanted. I mean, I don't know. like all the enchanteds, but this one in particular, I feel like just has a really good dynamic movement to it. I love the little swirls and his pose with his cloak billowing out behind him. Yeah, and DW just looks very determined there as well, which is cool.
I like how he's kind of like appearing from the blue smoke, right? Like in the artwork is really cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't wait to see this in person. And we saw blue smoke is a card. So makes sense.
So that's all of the reveals that we have for today. I did want to ask for Allie and Lukas, anything else that you guys want to share before we're done today?
I'll just say that, yeah, so I worked on a couple of sets before this, but Winterspell was the first set that I was the lead game designer on, and so I'm just super excited to kind of see the response that it has and see, you know, kind of the reactions to the different cards that we put into the set, because we put a lot of work, blood, sweat, not too many tears. I think we mostly avoided tears this time, except for maybe the cold of the weather. But a lot of work went into the set. We have an amazing team all across Ravensburger, and it's really an honor to work on this game and to bring these characters to life. So thanks for having me on the main stage and letting me share some behind the scenes info with y'all.
Yeah, I just want to say our entire team is just so passionate about the game, and my team put in a lot for Winterspell to make sure it was as good as possible, and I'm really hoping that the community loves it as much as we do.
You both did such an amazing job, and obviously everyone else on the team did such a great job. I think people are really excited for this set. I also want to say thank you to LoreChronicals, Willow and Mr. Burns. Where can people find you?
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you truly so much for having us. This has been an honor. It's been so great to speak with both of you. We have a million more questions, so we'll just send them right to your DMs. But no, this has been so sweet. We have a YouTube channel called LoreChronicals. So you can find us at youtube.com /@LoreChronicalsTCG, where we talk all things Disney Lorcana.
Yeah. Lukas, Allie, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone at Ravensburger. If not for all the hard work you all do, we wouldn't be here right now. Willobeez, thank you so much for doing this with me. You are the brains behind this operation. And Richelle, thank you so much for putting these on, thinking of me. This has been one of my goals since I saw the first one, and I can't believe I'm actually here. And yeah, thank you, community. You can find me everywhere you can find Willow on LoreChronicles. Again, she's the boss. I'm the sidekick. So I appreciate you all so much.
Jeez, DW.
Thank you.
Brad.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much to everyone, and thank you to the audience, everyone who stuck around to the end, even, or who didn't. That's fine. But Winterspell comes to pre-release February 13th. Check tcg.ravensburgerplay.com to find a pre-release event near you, and then the wide release on February 20th. I hope you're excited to chase some of these Darkwing Duck enchanted cards and every other. I am chasing so many Raging Storms. Thanks, everyone. And that's it for today. And I guess for Winterspell, tune in to Weekly Lorecast tomorrow. We're going to show some epic cards. Thanks, everyone.